emazweni bathanda ukuthetha ngawe wendiyavuma ukwakiyo indlobo khawusondela phandi kukelele awufundina ukuba intombi khawusondela phandi uhlebele awufundina ukuba intombi eyo titi eyo titi intombi yo titi eyo titi.
Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome back to the second hour of LoveBabz, LoveTalk. I'm Babz Rawls-Ivy. Woo, I'm so delighted because this morning I get to talk to my girlfriend, Ife Gardine, and she has pulled together an amazing group of people to do DiasporaCon. Oh my God, I'm so excited about this. And I see Harry done tricked out your daggone flyer. Good morning, y'all. How are y'all?
Good morning.
Mr. Foster, Mr. Young, Mr. Ford, and Ife. So Ife, talk to me about DiasporaCon. Like, what is this? What is it? What is it?
So DiasporaCon is a showcase, a conference to showcase the opportunities and the oh my God, the opportunities and the many things and talent, the talent and creativity of African Americans in the diaspora that are represented in the comic book and graphic novel industry. And it's for everybody to come. Anybody can come. Everybody can come and enjoy. But I found out 2 years ago, I became aware of how many opportunities and just like the range of talent that there is in the comic and graphic novel industry when I started doing Lit Fest. So I was like, I've known Joe Young and Mr. Foster, Professor Foster forever, and they've been like expanding their work and doing things. And I just met TC Ford this year through Dr. Foster. And I was like, we got to showcase the talents in Connecticut. We got like a lot of stuff happening in Connecticut. So that's how it came about. So, Professor Foster actually put it in my head. Like
I had no idea that the comic book genre was so big and so wide and vast. And comic books are not just about comedy. It is. And I think that name is a little misleading. It's not about comedy because everybody I've known, so like I think Reggie Hudlin has his hands in comics. A bunch of folks.
John Lewis has a
John
novel
Lewis
series.
I have two. I think I have all of them. Somebody gifted them to me, and I was just impressed because I had no idea. So talk to me, anybody, one of y'all. Talk to me about Black folks' involvement in this genre of storytelling.
I can take that. Good morning, my sister. How you doing?
I'm good, Mr. Foster. How are you?
I am well. I got one thing to do before I can start talking. This is so Joe Lewis can see it.
Oh my God. Oh my God. And so,
dude, I ran to the store and picked that up. That's an animated series that special that Joe did back in the day. I got to tell you, it rivals the Peanut Christmas special by a long shot. And he made it personal. He had a person that was couldn't walk and had to use a wheelchair. He had a very, very diverse group of young kids in this story. Nice work, my brother. I haven't had a chance to say it to your face. I wanted to say it for sure.
Good to see you, Brother Bill.
What's happening on the subjects of comic books and graphic novels is that they are covering a wide range. Everybody has a story to tell. There's a story about how we used to have a big discrimination about how light or dark you were among Black people. And there is all kinds of American history being told, stories being retold. My brother, T.C. Ford, who's been involved in comic books, T.C., he will not tell you this, but I will tell you, he was the last editor for Charlton Comic Books. And he had the nerve to be Black. What was on your mind? And the idea was that we are covering so many different areas, and the industry, per usual, media picks up on the high points of what's happening in other fields. And so now you can, TV shows inspired by Black characters. There's a brand new one about a young sister who discovers that she has powers, and she's like, and dealing with stuff. This is just exploding. And we're kind of on the cusp of it, and I'm very excited that it should happen in Connecticut, the place where the first comic book were created. Comic books were published from all over the country right here in Connecticut. So we are right on the edge of this. And
I did not know that. That's a wonderful little piece of history. So talk to me about this genre. We're starting to sort of see people not just use it for fantasy, but to actually tell to tell stories of historical nature. Talk a little bit about that and why that is important.
When people are expanding themselves into market, they can't ignore us. The millions and billions of dollars that Black people use to buy products cannot be ignored anymore. It's interesting that Black comic books were kind of the first people who capitalized on that. Brother Burt Fitzgerald, who did the Golden Legacy comic books that included all kinds of people, both men and women from our history, and nobody would publish them until he said, listen, why didn't you put your ads for my books, and then we'll see where they go. He went to supermarkets. He went to Black social events. He contacted people at the NAACP. He contacted CORE, and he just made sure that his books got out. He did a book that was like, it's hard to find now, Fast Willie Jackson, which was like, if you look at Archie and they had Black people in it, that was it. And they not only had Black people, they had Latinos, they had Jewish people. He took it seriously. And those are hard to find. And he was smart. How do I know who's reading my book? He started a contest, send me pages of work, and if your work is good, we'll put it in the next issue. And it exploded. Even the major comic books had never done that. Possibly a couple of times they did a shot, but nobody believed it would happen. He is passed now. I'm so sorry. As has Maury Turner, who did We Pals, one of the first integrated comic strips in the country, which turned into a TV show called Kid Power. So, and Maury Turner was the nicest guy you would ever want to meet. Whenever I wrote to him, he always sent me back a personal note. He signed everything he sent me. I paid for it, by the way, y'all. I paid for it. Okay. Because that's one of the mistakes some people make. They think that they're going to get, I'm going to give out comics and people are going to know about me. No, you worked hard. You put time in. You worked, to bring out your idea and to tell your original story. I always insist to young people, I said, well, I'll give you free. No. You're going to get enough of that around this table. I'm going to pay you right here in cold, hard American cash because I want you to stay in business. Mm-hmm. So we have and graphic novels have taken it to the nth degree. They're telling science fiction stories. They're telling love stories. They're telling stories about people dealing with social issues. Black Lives Matter, you can believe that appears in a lot of graphic novels now.
Mm. So Joe Young, talk to me about your earliest influences with graphic novels, comic books. I mean, did it start with you as a young boy, or was something where you were an artist prior to, and this sort of spoke to you? Talk to me a little bit about your story.
Well, I first started off as a writer. Since I've been 7 years old, I've written scripts. I didn't really start drawing until like high school, college, but when I combined, my love for drawing and writing, I came out with a comic strip, because a comic strip is no more than a visual play. But I've always collected comic books, everything from Harvey Comics to Marvel to DC. It was my first chance to be an entrepreneur, selling comic books to my friends. But comic books actually saved me, because I was a poor learner in school. but I could learn through comic books, geography, science, and even character building. And so that's why I'm so into comics now, because it's helped me. And what I want to do is give back through my love of comics. So I did the comic strips, then I ventured into books. And when I first started, animation wasn't available to folks. It was too costly. But with technology, we're able to get animated programs. And so I started doing animation. And that's what I'm doing now. Short films and still doing comic books and things like that.
And so same question to you, TC4, like, how did you come into this genre? You have to unmute yourself.
No idea how to do this.
You got it. I hear you.
Okay. All right, there we go. All right, so no, it's funny that Joe was saying that he started as a writer, because that's exactly the same thing. I started as a writer, and then I realized I wanted to do children's books as a kid. I figured that was, I had the lock on that, and but I needed illustration, so I learned to draw to match the stories. And the best combination of that I found was comic books. Mm-hmm. So I started getting into comic books. I connected with a few artists that actually worked on comics. A gentleman by the name of James Sherman, who drew Legion of Superheroes for DC Comics. His aunt was one of my teachers, and so she connected me with him. And then a few years later, I met Dick Giordano and Frank McLaughlin, and they took me on as an apprentice, and I got involved more with the comic industry from there. Found out about Charlton Comics, which I knew about but I didn't realize they were in Derby. And then when I found out they were in Derby, that they had this wealth of characters and things, I wanted to be involved with them. So I eventually connected with them. My first published work was when I was 15 in a Charlton comic book. Something you mentioned earlier about the term comic book. The reason we have that term is because when comic books were originally created, they were created in Waterbury, Connecticut, believe it or not. So basically, they took the Sunday Funnies, they cut them up into booklet form and put out the first comic books. So they were called funny books, and then they went from funny books to comical books, and now they're comic books. And that's where that phrase comes from. Mm-hmm. And then graphic novels came in a little bit later, as people said, we can.
So talk to me, any one of you, talk to me about the growing popularity of these graphic novels, particularly with Black folks centering themselves in these stories in a very positive way.
There's a lot of Black creators that are coming to the marketplace to tell their stories. We've always been storytellers as a people. So we just found a new medium to tell those stories in. Basically, comic books were considered for kids for the longest time. And as we grew up, we wanted to tell more grown-up stories to communicate to the audience. We could collect those into booklet form, not just a comic book, but in a bookstore format book that you can actually pick up and read. People found we got more respect, I think, as an industry, and when we were able to go into a Barnes and Noble and pick up a graphic novel versus just a floppy comic book. So, and that's.
No, I think that was a natural progression, to move from comic books to more collected books, and then more tell the history of books. And when we told our stories, we told it a different way. The number of caricatures of Black people that were in comic books, in comics, and in funnies up to that point were just myriad, and they never were flattering. But when Black people started telling the story, talked about our Black scientists, our Black explorers, Black legislators, talked about the man who planned out the city of Washington, D.C., created the first clock in this country, and the number of women who handled education and science. And there were many stories to be told, and they're still being discovered every day.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you about the women involvement, because I don't know if I'm seeing enough women, but I could be wrong because maybe I'm not looking in the right places. So talk to me about the playing field for women in this genre of storytelling.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they're there.
From the comic strips to the comic books to the graphic novels. Go ahead, Joe.
No, even comic strips. I was on a conference call with Barbara Brandon, who, and so they're there. And
I was trying to get her for the conference.
Yeah, she's amazing. But I do a lot of teaching in schools. I teach cartooning, and I've never seen the explosion of young girls of color drawing cartoons. Anime is the big one right now, but they're coming, you know, with a force. And with technology, they're getting their work out. On social media, they're printing their own stuff, so they're there.
I want to say our logo, DiasporaCon logo, is done by a local young lady, Alana Ladson, who is a very talented creator as well. And there are so many women, Babz. It's like and I wanted to speak too on the educational part because Joe and TC had mentioned that they got into it in school. You know, as you know, I started lit because of I love literature, but also for literacy. And one of the ways I feel like we can promote literacy within ourselves and learn our stories is through comic books and graphic novels. And there's so much information out here now. And I know, and like the Stetson, like right now has a whole section of books out there. And as far as women, people's schedules didn't work out for women to be in this conference, but we're going to continue it with LitFest in September.
So talk to me about the day. What is the planning and the thinking around when people come to DiasporaCon? What will they expect? What will they see? What will they be able to participate and enjoy?
Well, we are going to have some vendors, some buy, sell, trade, however this in a room, because there's a lot of people with a lot of collections. We're Don Sawyer at Quinnipiac. I'm grateful for his welcoming us at Quinnipiac. Don Sawyer and I will welcome everyone to the space. And then we're going to have a poetry, spoken word performance. And then Reggie Augustine, who is he's grew up in New Haven and he teaches at Hill House. He's going to talk about his journey from self-publishing. And then Joe is going to talk about opportunities, because Joe he got publishing, cartoons, movies.
Yeah, Joe, stop embarrassing us, brother.
He's talking about the expansion and all the opportunities there. And then TC is going to talk about surviving the industry, because TC has also had for a few years a comic convention. This is a conference, not a convention. Conventions where people get all dressed up and do cosplay and do stuff. Conference. We want people to like, look, where can I sign up? What can I do? Where can I go from here? So TC is going to talk about surviving the industry. Then we're going to have Raheem Nelson, also a local person, New Haven. He's going to talk about understanding and creating NFTs, because all this stuff that people are creating, they can make some money off it now.
I'm fascinated by this whole NFT concept.
And
I'm fascinated by it.
I am too.
Me as well.
Oh, that's encouraging.
I have some friends that have actually sold some, and they got very excited with the money that they received. And the thing I understand about NFTs, and I'm still learning it, is that, you know, if those NFTs are sold to someone else, the creator gets a little cut of that sale. So you create that thing, and it goes out and about, you know, and if someone else buys it, you get a little bit of money back, which you don't get from one of the major companies. You know, if you create a character for, say, DC or Marvel, and then they make a movie, they might throw you an honorarium, but they're not required to do that. with the NFTs, I think it's like an automatic thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
And
We
so,
just started-
listen, when people have their kids out there doodling and saying, "Oh, don't do that," or they need to like hold on to that stuff and encourage them. And then we're going to close out today with Bill Foster in conversation with Michael Jai White, who of course is our local another star from Connecticut that has gigantic studios and the first first black superhero, and John Jennings, who is like it out in Hollywood, like he does a lot of stuff. He's like huge, worked on Black Panther and a lot of things. And I have to say, Bill Foster is a historian.
Yes,
Like
he is.
he's a historian and has so much information. So I'm really grateful for his kind of helping us out with this, like, and being a backbone. Because I'm like, I knew about comic books because I've known Joe again and Bill Foster for a long time, but didn't realize the depth. It's a whole big industry.
So talk to me about the trade sale component, because I guess there's a lot of people who have old and hard to find books, graphic novels, or maybe not so much graphic novels, but maybe honest to God comic books, and they have collected them. How do you know if you have something really special?
It really depends on the story, the artist who did it, the writer in some cases. Sometimes it's the character. The more popular characters, their earlier appearances go for bigger money because those things are harder to find the older that they are. But there's even newer books that have come out. Well, case in point, if you've seen Marvel Studios has done something called Captain America or Falcon and Winter Soldier, where the Falcon becomes the new Captain America.
Yes.
That only happened in Marvel a few years ago. And that issue is actually going for money now because it's the first appearance of the Falcon as Captain America. And people are getting excited by that because, he's now Black. He's, I think, more representational of America than Steve Rogers was. So,
Speaking of that, my brother, is that every one of us here knows about the Tuskegee experiments.
Right.
Marvel did an unusual step. They said the Captain America is Captain America because of super serum, the super soldier serum. But they said, would they have proposing a story, would they have given that to somebody white until they tested it on somebody Black, telling a historical reality about how Tuskegee was just exploiting Black people? And they said, okay, they did a whole entire story where all the guys that experimented were Black, and the various votes, they came on something that they finally gave to Steve Rogers. But they made that a permanent part of the story of Captain America. This is how you got Captain America. You didn't just get him because a white guy. For years, they told him it was a white guy in an experiment, and he took it, and he just became Captain America. They wanted to be sure that how we live our truth, how we live the truth of our history is for real. They made it a permanent part. For any story told about Captain America, he wasn't the first. And then they did the story about the first Black guy. Now they're doing a story about the first Black guy's son. So our role in American history is being given, even in a comic book, is given full weight. I was stunned by that.
Do you think this is a great way to, because we're having all these ridiculous conversations about critical race theory. Do you think this is a way to make our history in the world, in this country and in the world, palatable to other folks to digest and sort of not have this, I guess, white guilt or other kind of guilt or whatever it is, that this somehow ever is presented in a way that they can grasp and understand without being connected to it in their history?
I think that's true. I think it's odd that of all the things that Black people have done and all the, and I'm loving this Ben Franklin documentary on public TV where they talked about through his life, he owned slaves originally, but before he died, he changed over and he said, we have to change the law. Everybody here is going to be here. Everybody here made a part of what we are. So history is taking on a new place. Some people don't like it, but the idea is history is not here for us to like. It's for us to absorb and to maintain those things that we think that work and get rid of those things that we don't, that don't work. And Black people have never had a part in that. The story Negro Heroes, what was done in the late 1940s. And I don't know about y'all, but I remember only two people were mentioned: George Washington Carver and Booker T. Washington. And occasionally they would do Sister Freedom, who brought all of our people out of the South, And it's like, that's it. But then when you have Burke Fitzgerald doing Golden Legacy, where he's talking about Black scientists, he's talking about Benjamin Banneker, he's talking about the first people who got involved in aerodynamics. And now we're seeing that the brand new movie where the sisters were responsible for the calculations that sent us to the moon. That's a heck of a story. Who knew that story? No one. And somebody gave it face. I think the idea that the mood is changing enough so people can say, if we're going to be inclusive, we're going to tell the truth, we're going to tell the story, even if stories that we make up from the original stories, we have to involve as many people as we can. And that includes us.
Right.
And Joe is in a lot of classrooms right now. So I'm sure he has.
Right. But now is the moment. And we need as many Black creatives to put out in the comic book platform. I created a character called Emmett, and he's a time traveler. And he was born in 1776. He gets picked up in the middle, in Africa, goes through the Middle Passage. He becomes a runaway slave. He's 10 years old. He builds a time machine with Benjamin Banneker. And he comes into the 21st century. And when we have problems, he brings them back to the past. We have 3 comic books out now, but we have worksheets where we're talking about Black history and Black excellence. We're in like 200 newspapers with these activity sheets with 1 million readers a week. And so if I'm able to do this, anybody else can do it as well. Now is after George Floyd, everything blew up in opportunity. And even with the comic book, we just sold a bunch of comic books, but our market just is in schools. Families are dying for this material. So now is the moment to get our story out.
So is the natural progression from graphic novels and comic books to film? Is that a natural progression? I mean, is it an artist's dream to sort of see their graphic novel and their comic book go to film? Like we saw Black Panther and the whole creation of Wakanda and all of that. Is that the goal? Is that the ultimate success?
It should be the goal because that's where the money is. It's in the film. And these artists need to get paid for their work. I mean, one of my heroes is Aaron Magruder. He went from the Boondocks. Comics had the cartoon, but everyone on the call. But that should be the natural progression, I think. And animation is the way to go. I just finished a animation with Smokey Robinson, and Ife, he's going to be here on the 28th. I'll invite anybody if you guys want to come.
23rd.
No, Smokey.
Oh, 28th?
The 28th. So for you guys on the call, and we'll show the animation we did on this Black American, which is really controversial. And but we can talk about that another time. But
Smokey Robinson.
But animation is, to me, should be in the space when we're doing comic books. That's where you really, like Black Sand, they were doing the comic books. Now I believe they're getting into motion pictures where they can really get paid.
So when we talk about this genre and the way that it is growing and blossoming, is there an end in sight? Is there a ceiling? Is there where do you imagine that this could go?
Well, like all books, it's a it's not, comic books aren't really a genre. Comic books are the medium to tell the story. There's all kinds of different genres within comic books. And I think that's going to expand over time as people realize that it's not all superheroes. You can tell a Western story, you can tell a horror story, you can tell a comedy story within the bounds of the comic book or the graphic novel. And I think the more people realize that, and I think the Japanese have already done so with their manga,
Somebody need to get their phone.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll stop soon. It's across the room. It's me. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's stopped.
It's an actual ringing phone. I'm like, okay.
And an
Yeah.
old-fashioned ring
That's
too.
that's how it works. You know, the moment you're doing something else, that's when the phone rings. Sorry about that. But yeah, no. So you know, because comics are going to be more notably diverse as we go along. You know, that's going to expand the marketplace for comics, and there's going to be more room for Black creators and creators of all colors. But you know, since we're talking about Black creators specifically, there's plenty of room.
And see, I think with technology and all these platforms, we've never seen anything like this before. Exhibit our work.
Right. Plus the printing process has become easier too.
Yeah.
You know, when I first started, we had to paste it all up and you had to shoot it with a camera and then make the plates. And now you scan it, it's all digital and it prints out, and it's a whole different thing. Oh, Mr. Young, I was told to say Mr. Dornfried says hi.
Oh my God. He got me into it. We went to Southern together. I admired his work. Yeah, okay. All right, we'll talk. I got to get your information. We'll talk.
And then, and also, Joe has publishing company. Like he publishes people.
Well,
like,
we all do, don't we? We all have our.
Yeah, I have United Comics.
Yep.
A couple of my books.
Yep.
What a surprise! No, and I have my own publishing company where I write stories and tell about stories that made me who I am through my family. I give credit to my mother, my grandmother, my sisters, my cousins. Everybody's got a story to tell. And if you tell a story that's personal, you'll be surprised how many people connect to it because they know the same story. I heard a gospel hymn the other day, which I haven't heard since my grandmother was still alive. And it made me want to cry because it was still deep in me, that having gone to church and seeing how people got dressed up and, you know, they're maintaining their dignity. Those are the stories that people need to see. But you need also, if you see a story about a superhero or a guy going to outer space or a guy going through time, could it be a Black person? Could it be a Black woman? And if it can, then we've made major changes.
Yes.
And are affecting people behind us. When the Black Panther movie came out, I was hired by a number of groups to do a speech before the movie and then listen to people's reaction afterwards. Black Panther has been a part of my world since the 60s. I love the character. But the idea was that here were groups of kids dressed like Wakandan warriors, you know.
Women dressed like the Dora Milaje.
Yes, they were. And they were carrying it off. And they had that same expression on their face. And so, but here's the thing. You know how that we have that myth about Black people talking in the movies? I'm going to call it a myth because that's what I'm going with today. But the idea was, I watched everybody in that audience, everybody, and it was a mixed racial audience, mixed, you know, ethnic audience, age group. Everybody was quiet at the same time. Everybody laughed at the same time. Everybody cheered at the same time. I said, this is a herald to some changes coming along. I was just stunned by that. And it talks about the beginning, the inkling of possibilities of where we can take this based on a comic book, based on a graphic novel, based on a story.
Yep, and we're breaking through too. When Ray Billingsley won the Reuben Award, that was huge to do that. And so doors are
And
open.
what is the Reuben Award?
One of the highest awards that a cartoonist can get. It's kind of like the Heisman Trophy, but in cartooning. And Ray Billingsley, he's old school artist. You know, I reconnected with Walter Carr. When you remember, you used to watch, you go to Ebony, you see Strictly for Laughs. Those guys were master artists.
Oh yeah.
And they've been struggling for years, but he won the Reuben Award.
It's
Okay,
like the
so-
Grammy or the Emmy.
Ife,
Emmy, yeah.
tell us
Oscar.
again when the event is and how people can sort of register or come or where it's going to be and the time and before
So
we jump off.
DiasporaCon, the conference to bring forth awareness of comic book and graphic novel opportunities in the industry is going to be at The Quinnipiac University North Haven campus is at 370 Bassett Road in North Haven, the beautiful medical school and law school campus. On Saturday, Saturday, April 23rd, from 12 noon to 6 p.m. You can, we're on Eventbrite, DiasporaCon. You register on Eventbrite because we do have to have a head count pre-register because things are slacking up, but we're still in COVID and we have to track folks. And that's how you pay on Eventbrite. What else? And we hope to see you there.
Okay. And so how is it being received to date? What do you know so far before we jump off?
So far, I'm getting a lot of emails and calls. And we have registration is happening as well. We have a lot every day. I'm like, oh, more registrations. So we're looking forward to the day. We're looking forward to bringing something that is not a convention, that's a conference. And I hope folks come out for the opportunities that are out here for them.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
I also want to mention lunch is going to be you get lunch with your admission, and the first 100 people will get a free comic book thanks to Alternate Universe in New Haven, the comic book store in New Haven and Milford.
Mr. Foster, you wanted to say?
I'm remembering the first book before All Negro Comics came out in 1947. There was a book that came out in 1944 called The Red Mask. Hero was Black. There was no question. He was in Africa. And the first book came out. This was back when comic books were being used. The money used to produce comic books was used as a dodge to cover money people had made during Prohibition. That's the story nobody tells. Where did that money come from? I was making comics. So the first book comes out and there's a Black guy on the cover. They send them all back. Nobody wants to accept it. They come back with another one.
I know you got to go because it's getting close to time.
Okay. So the idea is that if you have a hero, it shouldn't matter what color the hero is. That's my point.
Okay. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed this conversation. I've learned a great deal. Thank you, TC Ford, Joe Young, and Mr. Foster and Ife. Thank y'all coming on this morning and talking about DiasporaCon. Which is happening April 23rd at the Quinnipiac University campus. I'm looking forward to being there and seeing some of y'all and see what I can find and what I can learn. Thank y'all. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Play us out.
Bonanza